We want to tell you about the very latest and what's going on with President Biden and the White House. So late this afternoon, some major developments, guys, in the war in Ukraine. Earlier this afternoon, President Biden asked Congress for another $33 billion for Ukraine. $33 billion. I just want you, as you're sitting there struggling right now, to pay your rent, to put food on the table. The prices of everything in your house have gone up. Right? The gasoline prices have gone up. Your grocery store prices have gone up. Everything. We just asked for another $33 billion for Ukraine. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. It's an unbelievable number. And when you think about the President of the United States just last week, or 2 weeks ago, authorizing $11 billion.
And if you just rewind the clock one full year, you remember that we were fighting about COVID relief at this time last year. And the infighting was all about whether or not the United States could afford it because we were about to hit a debt ceiling, right? And whether or not these COVID relief programs would pay back. Why, you must ask yourself, is there no fighting about this money going out the door if there is no real assurance that we will make it back? Well, it's because war does make its money back.
Oh, war is so profitable, guys. I mean, look, if there's one thing, Philip last week asked me, he said, Clayton, do you have any agenda at all on this show? And I have no agenda other than I'm absolutely anti-war. Absolutely anti-war. Anytime weapons are involved, nothing good comes of it. That's my agenda. So you can give me any kind of label you want. You can call me conservative. You can call me progressive. You can call me whatever the hell you want. I don't care. I'm strictly anti-war.
And this is an unrepresented voice on the mainstream media right now. In fact, a study in 2003, right after the United States started bombing the Middle East, showed that on mainstream cable news, less than 10% of pundits were anti-war. 90% of who they put on the TV for you to watch will tell you, oh yeah, we need to fight. Let's go fight. Do they tell you what those people's interests are in the fight? No. They might tell you those people who are pundits were former military advisor, whatever. Leave out the fact that they are currently on the board with Raytheon or Lockheed Martin. So there is a reason for us to all get riled up to go to war. And it's not because it's good for us.
So the White House facts. So again, if you're just joining us, Biden just asked for an additional $33 billion more in Ukraine on top of the $11 billion last week. He says this is for the next 5 months of them to fight. I mean, if you needed any more evidence, guys, that this is a long-term war, this is a long-term proxy war, that this thing is not. I just tweeted this a few minutes ago before the show. Sometimes, you can't remember, did I write this down in my notes or did I tweet it? Did I tweet that little nugget of wisdom?
Most of the time, I can't remember if I said something out loud, especially when I'm talking to my children. I'm like, did I say that out loud or did I just think it? And they're like, no, you said it. I'll get the shoes.
So I did actually tweet this, which is, if you needed any more evidence that this war, this is not going to end quickly. This is the entire modus operandi right now for the United States and NATO, which is to continue this long-term proxy war. And President Biden says 5 months, this will sustain Ukraine for another 5 months.
Okay, this is probably the 5th or 6th time I'm starting to lose track that we've opened our wallets, right? That we thought this would get them through. How do you calculate that? I mean, how do we know?
Well, how do they? I'm not exactly sure. I guess
Philip
we could base
trying
it.
To say something.
No, I'm going to let Phillips in a second here, Philip. But I was going to say that we know some bit of it because the $11.5 billion that we authorized 2 weeks ago, according to the White House, has already been depleted. So that's maybe how we know that this will get us through another 5 months. Go ahead, Philip. Sorry.
Well, my question is, so we've got the 8 billion, and now we're asking for another 30 billion. So we're sending all these billions over there, not weapons, but actual money. What are they buying and from where?
Well, some of it is quantified in weapons.
Yeah, almost, I would say about 80% of this money to Ukraine is in the form of weapons. The other 20% or so is in humanitarian aid. Humanitarian and, let me, actually, you want to know more? I actually have a sheet here. You want to see this?
Yes, I do.
So among, the White House released this afternoon. So this is the $33 billion they're asking for. The White House then released a fact sheet on exactly what they want inside of this $33 billion, right? And one big chunk of it is going to go to counter Russian disinformation and propaganda narratives, promote accountability for Russian human rights violation, and support activists, journalists, and they're going to give money to independent media to defend freedom of expression.
That is crazy town.
I mean, I just want to oh my God, I'm fired up.
So
like they're going to give money to independent
gets a
journalism.
PR representative to travel with them.
Yeah.
Like Steve Jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, they're going to give, I mean, I guess, but I mean, this is amazing, right? So because think about this, right? They're going to send requesting for Ukraine will be to support independent media because nothing screams independent like being directly funded by the U.S. government
like
as part of
its
information
government.
warfare initiative. I mean, literally, I cannot wait to see what independent media is all about. I can't wait to see like who gets this money. That sounds fun. It's like Elf, It's like, that sounds fun.
What's a candygram? I want one.
I want one of those.
It's
Who's
already
the independent media that the White House is going to fund? Who are these people?
Well, it's obviously already independent because Ukraine already shut down all like opposing media sources they didn't like. So that's independent, right?
I guess. Yeah.
Well, add to that the fact that Raytheon said that the supply chain will put them behind in making the anti-aircraft Stinger missiles. So now, after Raytheon said that, senators are asking the president to invoke the Defense Production Act. What is that? It means that arms makers will be able to jump the line in the supply chain for materials they need to make weapons, right? This was an emergency act. It's supposed to be reserved for war, which supposedly we're not in, right? So let's say a home building company needs some materials and it has it on order. Well, this means that Raytheon or Lockheed can sort of jump the line and get those materials before the company that actually ordered it. So think about that from how it might affect us, right? We have shortages of supply chains. Let's see, microchips, all kinds of material, right, that are used to make cars. It's hard to buy cars these days. There's a shortage of housing. But we will have to get to the back of the line because our government has decided it's a priority to make weapons to send to Ukraine rather than for you to buy what it is you need to subsist.
Unbelievable. And so I should point out, as we look deeper into what the White House wants to spend here, and as Glenn Greenwald points out, he tweeted just a short time ago, excellent journalist Glenn Greenwald, if you don't know who he is, of course, he is the one who broke the Edward Snowden story that the National Security Administration was spying on Americans, okay? That's just one of his many credentials. Glenn Greenwald, he tweets, now $33 billion more to fuel the war in Ukraine. Given the predictions and hopes of U.S. officials that this will last years, not months, it's hard to see any end to this cash drain to Raytheon and friends. And that's all independent of the escalation risks, which Americans benefit. What Americans do benefit from this? I mean, again, this is a great question. It is interesting also to read President Obama. If you want to kind of go back into the archives, I don't ever want this show to be, I don't ever want any one of you watching to say that this show lacks nuance, right? The difference from the show that you're watching here and the reason that you subscribe to this show is that what you don't get on cable news, what you don't get in the mainstream media is you don't get nuance, right? They have 3 minutes to do a segment. They get 3 questions, and then they have to go to commercial break so you can get a prostate pill
Yes.
Commercial. I want to make sure that we have nuance in this show because it's not black and white, and there's a lot of nuance to this. And so I think it's instructive to go back to 2016. President Biden's boss then was President Obama at the end of 2016 before he was leaving office, right? And it is interesting to read President Obama's position on Ukraine back then in the final year of his presidency, how much it deviates from President Biden's. Here's an interview that President Obama did with Jeffrey Goldberg at the time. Let me pull up this quote. This was an interview. Obama's theory here is simple, Goldberg writes. Ukraine is a core Russian interest, but not an American interest. So Russia will always be able to maintain escalatory dominance here. So we understood that. We've all long understood that it's their neighbor. Like that's like someone saying that we would have that someone would have a greater ability for us to attack Canada than the United States would, right? It's right there on our border. It's always going to be able for the United States to escalate in Canada than any other country.
Sure.
Right? Maybe somebody in the Northern Territory somewhere, if they've got a bug in their bonnet, wanted to come down and see. I don't know. Anyway, my point is that it's always going to be in their interest rather than the United States. So President Obama was asked, and he said, The fact that Ukraine, which is a non-NATO country, is going to be vulnerable to military domination by Russia no matter what we do, Obama said. I asked Obama whether his position on Ukraine was realistic or fatalistic. Well, it's realistic, he said, but this is an example of where we have to be very clear about what our core interests are and what we are willing to do for war, or what we are willing to go to war for. Now, if there is somebody in this town that would claim that we would consider going to war with Russia over Crimea and eastern Ukraine, they should speak up now and be very clear about it. That was President Obama in 2016.
I don't find that very clear. It's very like we reserve the right to go to war if we feel like it, and we might always feel like it, maybe.
I don't know. The way I read it, the way that it came across to me is that no, like this is not in the United States' interest to go to a war with Russia over Crimea or Eastern Ukraine.
But he leaves the door open like, but I can be convinced. If someone in this town wants to tell me.
If there was a propaganda arm that could tell me that there's all sorts of genocide going on, that the Ukrainians are killing innocent civilians, then perhaps I could be, if a lot of liberals start putting up Ukrainian flags on their front porches across the United States, I might be convinced of this.
What are you saying, Philip?
He also used the word, like the term that, like, the reason for going to war could be ambiguous. That I don't like that at all. like
glad you picked up on that.
Like, wait, I saw that and I was like, wait a minute. No, I'd actually prefer to know why. They're like, yeah, well, you know, they kind of did something. We're doing it. We're doing it.
We don't ever really want people to know about why we go, why we go to war. We have a story coming up a little bit later about Biden's new disinformation department, which is going to be rolling out as part of the Department of Homeland Security. We'll get to that, which is part of this ambiguity. But of course, long term, this isn't about Russia, guys. It's always about China. It's always about China. It's always about making sure that China is somehow involved in this. Today, we got further confirmation of that. This afternoon, the UK foreign minister just declared the need for a global NATO. Look at this. This was from the UK Foreign Office this afternoon. Quote, "We need a global NATO." By that, I don't mean extending the membership to those from other regions. I mean that NATO must have a global outlook ready to tackle global threats. We need to preempt threats in the Indo-Pacific region, working with our allies like Japan and Australia to ensure the Pacific is protected. We must ensure that democracies like Taiwan are able to defend themselves. So again, this has always been about China, not Russia. And of course, this is where it's all leading very, very, very soon. Thank you so much for subscribing to our channel. We've been banned, we've been blocked, we've been censored. That's why we started our own website, to stay connected with you for free.
That's right. So head on over to redacted.inc and make sure you're connected with us. You can sign up again at redacted.inc, not .com.